There's a voice inside you. You hear it every day. The one that speaks when the world goes quiet. The one that shows up when you're about to take a risk, make a decision, step forward into something unknown. Most of us let that voice become our worst critic. It tells us we're not good enough, that we're too late, too early, too slow, too weak, too different. It reminds us of every failure and doubts every win. But here's the truth. That voice isn't supposed to break you. It's meant to build you. The problem isn't that we talk to ourselves. The problem is how we talk to ourselves. So what if for 21 days you spoke to yourself with the same kindness you give others? What if for 21 days you coached yourself instead of criticized yourself? What if you chose words that lifted you up, not locked you down? Let's be real. Your brain listens to every word you say, every single one. It takes that message and it builds your mindset, your beliefs, your identity. So if you say, I'm not good at this, guess what? You're training your brain to give up before you try. If you say, I always fail, you've given failure permission to become your story. But what happens if you change the dialogue? What happens if you say, I'm learning, I haven't figured it out yet, I'm built for hard things, I've come too far to quit? Now you're not lying to yourself, you're leading yourself, you're speaking truth with hope. And truth with hope is the most powerful combination in the world. The way we speak to ourselves is one of the most powerful forces in shaping who we are. It influences how we think, how we behave, what we believe is possible, and what we decide to pursue or abandon. Your inner voice, those thoughts you hear in the silence, the ones that echo when no one else is around, is not just background noise. It's the architect of your identity. Every day in small moments, we reinforce our identity through our internal dialogue. We say things like, I'm not good at this, or I always mess this up, or why even bother trying? These aren't just throwaway thoughts. Your mind is listening. And the more it hears these messages, the more it builds your identity around them. It becomes your lens. Eventually, you stop questioning these thoughts and start accepting them as fact. Not because they are true, but because they are repeated. That's the secret most people overlook. Your brain believes what it hears most often. And if what it hears most often is negative, critical, or full of doubt, then those become the building blocks of your identity. You don't wake up one day thinking you're not enough. That belief is built over time, thought by thought. Word by word, repetition becomes identity. The reverse is also true. If you choose to speak to yourself with intention, with belief, with encouragement, even when you're struggling, you begin to reshape your identity from the inside out. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's always behind, always failing, always broken. You start seeing yourself as someone who's trying, someone who's learning, someone who doesn't give up when it gets hard. And that shift, however subtle at first, is what creates growth. Think about it. When you talk to yourself like a failure, you hesitate to try. When you talk to yourself like a fraud, you question every opportunity. But when you talk to yourself like a leader, like someone worthy of the life they want to create, you step forward. You start to act in alignment with the person you want to become, not the person you're afraid you are. This is not about empty affirmations or pretending everything's perfect. It's about honest, hopeful language that reflects your potential instead of trapping you in your past. It's about choosing words that give you space to evolve, not shame that keeps you small. When you hear yourself say, I'm not good at this, try changing it to, I'm learning how to do this. Instead of, I always screw this up, say, I'm figuring it out as I go. It's a small shift, but small shifts repeated consistently lead to big change. And change in your words leads to change in your mindset. And mindset, that's the gateway to your identity. Most people don't even realize they're reinforcing a negative identity with their self-talk. It becomes so habitual, so automatic, that it goes unnoticed. But once you start paying attention to it, once you slow down enough to listen, you can interrupt the pattern. And once you interrupt it, you can start rewriting it. Every time you speak to yourself with encouragement instead of judgment, with patience instead of frustration, with belief instead of doubt, you're not just being kind to yourself. You're training yourself to become someone new, someone stronger, someone more grounded, someone more capable. You want to change your life? Start with how you talk to yourself. You want to build confidence? Talk to yourself like someone who is learning to lead. You want to be disciplined? Talk to yourself like someone who doesn't give up. You want to have clarity? Talk to yourself with calm, not chaos. The voice in your head will either become your biggest enemy or your greatest ally, and you get to decide, not once, but every day. Identity is not something you find, it's something you create. And the raw material for that creation is already inside you, it's in your words. Talk to yourself like someone you believe in. Because once you do, you'll start acting like someone worth believing in. And that's where the transformation begins. We all talk to ourselves. In the quiet moments, during stress, before big decisions, or after we've made mistakes, that voice in our head is always present. It's natural. In fact, self-talk is one of the most important internal tools we have. But like any tool, it can be used to build or to break. The key isn't whether you talk to yourself. The mistake most people make is believing that being honest with themselves means being harsh. That to grow, they need to tear themselves down. That if they're not hard on themselves, they'll get lazy, soft, or unmotivated. But that's not how it works. Destructive self-talk doesn't create accountability, it creates shame. And shame doesn't drive change. It drives avoidance, fear, and paralysis. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty. Being honest with yourself means facing the truth about your habits, your patterns, your weaknesses. But it doesn't mean calling yourself names. It doesn't mean belittling yourself, comparing yourself to others, or holding yourself to impossible standards. It means holding yourself to real standards with compassion. Let's say you missed a goal. The harsh voice says, "You're such a failure. You'll never get this right." The honest voice says, "That didn't go the way I planned. What can I learn from this?" One creates shame. The other creates progress. We confuse harshness with strength, but true strength lies in self-respect. Talking to yourself with clarity, curiosity, and encouragement doesn't make you weak. It makes you mentally resilient. It makes you more likely to stay in the game when things get tough because you're not attacking yourself every time something goes wrong. When you speak to yourself with constant negativity, it erodes your self-worth over time. You begin to internalize those messages. Your identity becomes shaped around failure, inadequacy, and fear. And the sad part is most people don't even notice it happening. It becomes normal. The cruel voice becomes familiar, and the more familiar it gets, the more believable it becomes. But there is another way. You can choose a self-talk style that is direct but not demeaning, firm but still forgiving. You can hold yourself accountable and still be kind. You can recognize your flaws and still affirm your value. You can acknowledge your failures and still believe in your future. You don't need to lie to yourself. You don't need to fake positivity. What you need is language that makes room for growth. Instead of saying, "I'm terrible at this," say, "I haven't figured it out yet." That's not denial. That's development. That's how you shift your mindset from fixed to flexible. When you're going through something hard, the goal isn't to deny the pain or pretend everything's fine. It's to speak to yourself in a way that strengthens you through it. Say, "This is hard, but I've gotten through hard things before." Say, "This setback stings, but it's not the end of the road." Say, "I'm struggling right now, and that's okay. I'm still moving forward." It's okay to be disappointed in yourself. It's okay to want more from yourself. But it's not okay to weaponize your words against yourself. If you wouldn't say it to someone you love, why say it to yourself? What you repeat becomes what you believe, and what you believe becomes how you behave. So if your internal dialogue is full of criticism, you'll begin to approach your life from a place of inadequacy. You'll take fewer risks. You'll doubt your instincts. You'll retreat instead of rise. But if your inner voice is one of honest encouragement, one that tells the truth with empathy, you'll build resilience. You'll push through discomfort. You'll stretch, grow, and recover faster from failure, not because you're lying to yourself, but because you're leading yourself. Self-talk isn't about pretending. It's about protecting your potential while pushing yourself forward. It's about recognizing that the voice in your head is not just commentary, it's command. And when it speaks, your entire system responds. So choose words that are true, but also helpful. Be honest, but never harmful. Challenge yourself, but never tear yourself down. That's not strength. That's self-sabotage disguised as discipline. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be intentional. Talk to yourself like someone who wants to grow, because the way you speak to yourself is the way you shape yourself. Most people go through life burdened by what they have to do. I have to go to work. I have to exercise. I have to spend time with my family. I have to study, to show up, to keep going. But that one phrase, "I have to," carries with it a weight. It implies obligation, pressure, and lack of choice. It subtly sends the message that you are a victim of your responsibilities, not the owner of your actions. And over time, repeating it day after day drains your energy, your motivation, and even your joy. Now imagine if instead you replaced "I have to" with "I get to." I get to go to work. I get to move my body. I get to spend time with people I love. I get to show up for my goals. The shift seems small, just one word, but the impact is massive. "I get to" reframes your responsibilities as privileges. It reminds you that what feels routine to you today may have once been something you deeply desired, or it might be something someone else in the world is still praying for. Think about the job that's stressing you out. Yes, maybe it's difficult, maybe it's demanding, but at some point, you hoped for an opportunity like it. Or maybe it's what pays your bills and supports your family. That's not something to dread, it's something to respect. Or consider your health. You say, "I have to go to the gym," but how many people would give anything just to be able to move, walk, lift, or run again? You get to move your body. You get to improve it. That's not punishment, it's power. This is not about ignoring the hard parts of life. It's about honoring the fact that you still have the ability to show up, that you're not helpless, that even on your worst day, you still have options. And where there are options, there is opportunity. Language is more than expression. It's a signal to your brain. When you say "I have to," you communicate that your life is controlled by external forces. But when you say "I get to," you reclaim ownership. You remind yourself that everything you do is a choice, even the hard things, especially the hard things. "I have to give a speech" becomes "I get to share my ideas." "I have to parent my kids" becomes "I get to shape a life." "I have to practice" becomes "I get to improve." It doesn't erase the difficulty, but it adds purpose. And purpose is what sustains us when motivation fades. Gratitude doesn't make struggle disappear, but it does make the struggle meaningful. It transforms obligation into opportunity. It turns daily routines into daily reminders of what you're capable of doing. When you approach your day with a get-to mindset, you naturally bring more energy, more commitment, and more resilience. Why? Because you've taken back your power. You're no longer dragging yourself through life, you're engaging with it. And this isn't just about positive thinking, it's about deliberate thinking. It's about reminding yourself that time is limited and nothing is promised. The very things you complain about today might one day become things you miss. So when your alarm goes off and you groan, "I have to get up," try whispering instead, "I get to wake up." When the workout feels heavy, remind yourself, "I get to get stronger today." When work feels overwhelming, tell yourself, "I get to solve problems others trust me to handle." This is the mindset of people who don't just survive, they grow. People who don't just exist, they live. You don't owe it to anyone else to think this way. You owe it to yourself, because how you frame your life shapes how you experience it. One phrase keeps you stuck. The other frees you to see the possibility within the pressure. One drains you. The other fuels you. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I have to," pause, reframe it, say, "I get to," and feel the difference in how you walk into that moment. Because that one change won't just shift your words, it will shift your life. Leadership doesn't start with managing others. It starts with managing yourself. Before you can inspire, guide, or influence anyone else, you have to earn your own trust. You have to prove through action, consistency, and integrity that you can show up for yourself first. Because how can you lead anyone effectively if you can't lead the person in the mirror? Most people are chasing influence without building internal discipline. They want respect from the world but don't respect their own commitments. They want to motivate others but ignore the promises they make to themselves. Real leadership is not a title, it's a mindset. It's the ability to align your values with your behavior, especially when no one's watching, especially when it's uncomfortable. Leading yourself starts with clarity. You have to know what matters to you. What are your principles? What are your non-negotiables? What do you stand for? Without direction, self-leadership becomes wishful thinking. You can't follow through on what you never defined. And when you have clarity, you don't need external motivation to act. You're driven by your own internal compass. But clarity is only the beginning. You also need discipline. The kind of discipline that doesn't wait for perfect conditions. That shows up when you don't feel like it. That stays focused when distractions pull at you. This isn't about being robotic or emotionless. It's about developing the ability to keep commitments even when your mood changes. That's the foundation of trust. And trust is what leadership is built on. If you want others to believe in you, you have to believe in yourself. Not in some inflated, ego-driven way, but in a grounded, earned way. That belief comes from the choices you make daily. From the moments you could quit but don't. From the times you're afraid but take the step anyway. Every small act of courage, every decision made with integrity, builds your self-leadership muscle. Self-leadership also means taking responsibility for your mindset. You don't control every event in your life, but you do control how you interpret and respond to it. You get to decide whether to be the victim of your circumstances or the author of your future. That choice, that posture is the essence of leadership. You cannot guide others through uncertainty if you crumble every time life gets messy. You cannot pour belief into a team, a family, or a mission if your internal dialogue is full of fear and self-doubt. That's why the real work happens in silence. In the habits you build, the standards you uphold, and the thoughts you challenge. Leadership is not always loud. Often it's the quiet decision to do the right thing when it's hard. Another part of leading yourself is emotional regulation. Great leaders don't react, they respond. They know how to pause, reflect, and make intentional choices instead of being controlled by impulse or ego. That starts with practicing self-awareness, asking yourself why you feel a certain way before you act on it. Leading yourself means mastering your emotions so you can guide others through theirs. The people who truly lead, who make the greatest impact, are the ones who don't just chase growth, they embody it. They don't wait for someone to push them, they push themselves. They don't lead because they have to. They lead because it's who they've become. And that identity is shaped through practice, struggle, failure, and reflection. You want to lead others? Start by showing up on time for yourself. You want to earn trust? Start by keeping your word to yourself. You want to inspire people? Start by living the values you talk about. The world doesn't need more people telling others what to do. It needs more people who live in a way that others want to follow. People who lead themselves first, who hold themselves accountable, who demand excellence from within before expecting it from anyone else. Because when you lead yourself, your actions speak louder than your words ever could. And people don't follow titles, they follow examples. Be the example, lead from within, and everything else will follow. Doubt is part of being human. It creeps in when you least expect it, right before a big decision, in the quiet moments after a failure, or when you're standing at the edge of something unfamiliar. Doubt whispers questions like, what if I'm not good enough? Or what if I fail? And if you're not careful, that whisper becomes your internal narrative. Left unchecked, doubt doesn't just challenge your plans, it attacks your identity. The problem isn't doubt itself. The problem is when we accept doubt's voice as truth without ever challenging it. Just because a thought shows up in your mind doesn't mean it belongs there. Just because you feel fear doesn't mean you're incapable. That's where power statements come in. They are your way of responding with intention instead of reacting in insecurity. Power statements are not about blind positivity. They are about choosing belief in moments of uncertainty. They are your way of speaking strength into fear, clarity into confusion, and courage into hesitation. Because the truth is, the most important conversations you will ever have are the ones you have with yourself. And when doubt speaks, you need to speak louder. When your mind says, what if I fail? Respond with, if I fail, I'll learn and come back stronger. When doubt says you're not ready, reply, no one starts ready. I grow by starting.
When the voice inside says people will judge you, say, their opinions don't build my future, my actions do. These are not fantasies. These are leadership tools. And they work. Your words create your world. What you say to yourself repeatedly becomes what you believe. And what you believe is what you act on. If you want to take powerful action, you must first speak powerful truth. Not just once, but every single time doubt shows up. That's the key. Doubt doesn't leave forever. It returns. It evolves. It changes shape. One day it sounds like fear. The next day it sounds like procrastination. Another day it disguises itself as perfectionism. But no matter how it arrives, your response must stay consistent. A deliberate, clear, grounded statement of truth that affirms your purpose. This isn't easy. It requires awareness. You have to catch yourself in the moment. You have to pause when your heart races, when your thoughts spiral, and ask, what story am I telling myself right now? And is it helpful? Is it true? Then you replace it. You rewrite the story. You choose language that empowers you instead of paralyzing you. I can't do this becomes I've never done this before, but I'm learning. I'm not good at this becomes I'm willing to get better every day. This is too hard becomes hard means I'm growing. It's too late for me becomes I'm right on time for my own journey. These are not just affirmations, they are identity declarations. Because power statements remind you of who you are becoming, not just what you're feeling right now. And that matters more than the fear in the moment. You can train your mind to respond differently. It takes practice. Just like any other skill, every time you answer doubt with a power statement, you build mental muscle. You teach your brain that fear doesn't get the final word. You start leading yourself instead of being led by your emotions. Eventually something incredible happens. The voice of doubt gets quieter. Not because it's gone, but because it's being drowned out by a stronger voice, your own. The voice that says, I can do hard things. The voice that says, I am not my mistakes. The voice that says, I'm showing up anyway. Your power statements become your foundation, your anchor in chaos, your reminder that while you don't control everything, you do control what you say to yourself. And what you say to yourself determines what you believe is possible. So don't wait for confidence to arrive. Speak it into existence. Don't wait for fear to disappear. Face it with truth. Don't wait until you feel ready. Decide that you are ready enough to begin. When doubt speaks, don't go silent. Speak back boldly. Speak back clearly. Speak back with the voice of someone who refuses to be defined by fear. Because that voice, the one you train to respond with power, that's the voice of a leader, and it's time you started listening to it. Your identity isn't formed in a single moment. It's shaped in the thousands of small, consistent choices you make every day. It's not what you say you are that defines you. It's what you do over and over again. Repetition is the architect of identity. Every action, no matter how small, casts a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. The problem is that most people think identity is a fixed label, something you either have or don't have. They say, I'm not disciplined, or I'm not confident, as if these are permanent traits etched into their DNA. But identity isn't fixed, it's built. And it's built through repeated behavior, not occasional effort. You don't become confident by reading one book. You don't become strong by going to the gym once. You don't become kind, courageous, or focused through a single act. These are qualities that emerge from daily discipline, repeated behaviors that over time become part of who you are. If you want to change how you see yourself, you have to change what you do consistently. The most powerful identity shifts happen when you align your actions with the version of you that you're trying to become. It's not about faking it until you make it. It's about acting as if and doing it again and again until that action becomes normal, natural, and part of your character. Let's say you want to become someone who is calm under pressure. That doesn't happen overnight. It happens each time you choose to pause instead of react. Each time you breathe through the chaos. Each time you speak with clarity instead of emotion. Every one of those moments is a brick in the foundation of your new identity. And if you keep laying bricks, you eventually build a structure solid enough to withstand any storm. Repetition also builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through on what you said you'd do, you tell your brain, I'm someone who shows up. I can rely on myself. That self-trust is what creates internal confidence, not loud affirmations or external validation. Repetition earns belief. The danger lies in the repetition of the wrong behaviors. If you consistently break promises to yourself, if you repeatedly procrastinate,